You're watching Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. Appreciate everybody for stopping by as we get you caught up with everything surrounding the New York Knicks. Ian Begley of SNY, insider for the New York Knicks. He had a mailbag kind of article that he put out just a couple of days ago, and I thought it was really interesting what he had to say about how he thinks the New York Knicks are going to attack the offseason, and he gave his opinion of what he thinks Leon Rose, Tom Thibodeau, and Worldwide Wes are going to do this summer. This was the quote of the question that pretty much asked, Ian, what do you think is going to happen? What are they going to do? And Begley said this: the Knicks, they have enough draft capital to make an aggressive offer for a top player. If there is a player who they believe fits their team, they will make a strong push for that player. You saw it in the 2022 offseason with Donovan Mitchell. I don't think their stance on pursuing a star is any different today than it was then. We got more quotes from Begley coming up, but I want to just stop it here before we talk more about what he kind of peeled the curtain back as to what could be coming in the next month. I think it's pretty obvious and safe to say it at this point. I'll echo what Ian did. Leon Rose will always be aggressive when looking and trying to add another star to this roster. He was hired here with the purpose of attracting stars to want to be members of the New York Knicks. He was a super agent. He was at the top of the food chain. They brought him here, yes, for his ability to grow a business and manage an NBA team, but also with his relationship and friendships, I will say, with NBA players that James Dolan thought could help him bring stars here. And he did that with Jalen Brunson, which then helped him bring in Josh Hart, which then helped him bring in Dante DiVincenzo. But I'll be honest, we talked about it yesterday. James Dolan still wants a star. That comes from Howard Beck of The Ringer, and I believe the Knicks are going to be in aggressive pursuit of a star because some of these draft picks that you have, they have an expiration date on them. You got 2 picks, 2 assets are going to be expired in a month. You can use pick 24 and 25 in this draft if you want. You could package them together to make a trade for a star or whatever you want to do. But in 2 months, these will no longer be assets that you can use to help better this team. You got 4 picks in 2025. That's right around the corner. Those assets will expire. You got 8 tradable first-round picks right now and 11 first-rounders in the next 7 years. I would be shocked if the Knicks draft 2 players in the NBA draft with these 2 picks. They also own pick 38. You're telling me the Knicks are going to pick 3 guys in the top 38 and add them to this roster? I don't see that happening, and I'm kind of basing that off what I've heard, as well as the fact that we know Tom Thibodeau does not love having rookies that he has to develop on his roster. Another part of Begley's response in that mailbag that kind of perked my ears up was this, quote, if I had to guess about this offseason, I'd say that the Knicks re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein and OG Anunoby and dangle at least one of their 2024 first-round picks in trade packages for a star player as the NBA draft approaches. First, we'll talk about the star player that he thinks the Knicks could dangle, what a word, to make a trade for a star player. But first this, the Knicks must re-sign OG Anunoby and Isaiah Hartenstein. We've spent a lot of time on this channel talking about OG, so let's start with Hartenstein. We know at this point that the New York Knicks can offer a maximum of 4 years and $72.5 million to re-sign Hartenstein. Other teams can offer more. They have their early bird rights. They are over the salary cap. This is the most they can offer, and this is what a 4-year deal at $72.5 million would look like. 16.2 this year, then 17.4, 18.8, and then finishing up at 20.1. If you think that $16.2 million in 2024 is too much for Isaiah Hartenstein, I want to compare it to some other players that make that much money at the center position. Miles Turner makes $19.9 million. Jakob Poeltl makes $19.5 million. Yusuf Nurkic, $18.1. Zach Collins, $16.7. And Isaiah Stewart makes $15. Hartenstein's better than Stewart, he's better than Collins, he's better than Nurkic, and he's better than Jakob Poeltl. I wouldn't be shocked if Hartenstein signs a bigger deal elsewhere in free agency. As the Knicks fan in me, I hope not. As the person that respects Hartenstein, I understand the hustle, and I know you only got so many years to capitalize on your opportunity. I hope he gets as much money as he wants. But I'd love to see him back in the blue and orange playing on this 4-year, $72.5 million deal. We also know that Anunoby is going to secure a bag this offseason. There's been talks that the Philadelphia 76ers could offer him a deal of up to 4 years, $180 million. If I had to predict what a deal could look like for Anunoby, I think it's going to be close to that $37.5 million per year. 4 years, $150 million is a projection that I have. I could see it going a little bit north. Maybe they go to a 5-year deal so Anunoby can kind of secure himself in the long term, as we know, as he's battled with injuries throughout his career. But I think around $37.5 to $40 million per year is the average annual value that Anunoby will ink a deal for this summer. And the Knicks, there's no price that's really too high for Anunoby. I want to look at these advanced stats right here. When OG played for the Knicks had the number 1 offensive rating in the NBA at 122.6. That means you scored 122.6 points per 100 possessions. They also had the best defense in the NBA, allowing just 100.9 points per 100 possessions, meaning they had a net rating, meaning they outscored their opponents by 21.7 points per 100 possessions. They were the best team in the NBA when Anunoby played. When Anunoby did not play, they struggled. Their offensive rating down 7 points per 100 possessions. Their defensive rating up 19 points per 100 possessions. You don't want the defensive rating to go up. The lower the number on the defensive rating, the better. Meaning they gave up 120 points per 100 possessions when Anunoby was off the floor. And when he was off the floor, teams outscored the Knicks by 4.7 points per 100 possessions. Meaning the Knicks were really good with him, not so good without him. You got to do whatever it takes to re-sign him, and I believe that will happen. You don't trade R.J. Barrett and you don't trade Emmanuel quickly if you're not going to re-sign OG. And the fact that his agent is the son of the Knicks head decision maker in Leon Rose, I think a deal is going to be done. Hartenstein, I don't know. If you want Hartenstein and OG back, though, hit that thumbs up icon for me right now. The next quote I want to break down from Ian Begley is the one that we've already talked about, but I just wanted to say it again. Quote, he thinks that the Knicks will, and they will re-sign Hartenstein and Anunoby, and dangle at least one of their 2024 first-round draft picks in trade packages for a star player as the draft approaches. Well, Leon Rose is not the only team and not the only decision-maker trying to dangle first-round picks to add star players. There was a report that just came out that Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz want to trade their first-round picks for star players. It is a theme going across the NBA that they believe this is a down draft. Good players to be had, but maybe not a lot of great players. And teams are trying to use that draft capital in this draft to add players to help their team win now. Why do I say that? Because I am now curious, with Begley mentioning dangling those first-round picks, can the New York Knicks add a star without having to trade Julius Randle? I'm going to break that down around the corner, but first, I got to make sure you're hooked up with our proud sponsor, PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use that promo code CLNS, and the #1 daily fantasy sports app will match your first deposit up to $100. With the Eastern Conference Finals done and the Western Conference Finals almost done, that means the NBA Finals is around the corner, and there is no better time to win big money with PrizePicks than the NBA Finals. But before we get there, I got to give you guys an inside look at my Game 5 picks for the Western Conference Finals. I think Luka's going to have a big game, and I think that they're going to close out the series against the Timberwolves. I'm going to go with more than 3.5 3-pointers made for Luka. I think Mike Conley, the vet, is going to be ready to play in a big-time game for Minnesota. Despite me believing they lose, I got more than 12.5 points for the veteran. You can roll with my picks or fade my picks, but I kindly ask, if you're going to play daily fantasy, you do it with our proud sponsor, PrizePicks, at prizepicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS. All you do is create a lineup of 2 to 6 players, and you simply pick more or you pick less on their projected stat line. You could turn $10 into $100. If you do a 2-player lineup, you could turn $20 into $60. PrizePicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS. If the Knicks are going to make a trade for a star and not include Julius Randle in that trade, you're going to have to give up a large chunk of your draft capital if you want a star. That word's tricky in the NBA. What is a star anymore? I'll try to go in depth about that. 2 picks this year, 4 next year, 8 tradable. You might have to move 4 or 5 of those if you really want to go out and get a star, and you're not including Julius Randle. This was interesting as well from Begley. Quote, I'd expect roster changes in Atlanta, New Orleans, and Cleveland in the offseason. Will Minnesota's ownership decide to pay a significant luxury tax to bring that group back? Or will they be active in the trade market? Do the Clippers offer Paul George what he's looking for in an extension? Or does another team? I want to focus on Paul George right here. Begley mentioned him, and I don't think he would do that without knowing a little bit of something. He's too smart. He's too good at what he does. But I'm also not saying because he mentioned him, the Knicks are going to go out and trade for him. What I will say is, though, with Begley mentioning him now, and the fact that we know that the New York Knicks made trade offers last summer for Paul George, I think that PG could be a player that the Knicks go and target. Can you get him, though, without giving up Randall? Not so sure. A reason I think Paul George could be a target is he is a part of the CAA Mafia. So is Brunson. So is Randall. So is Hart. Knicks are CAA, baby. And Paul George, you're interested last year. He's still CAA. You're going to be interested again this year. My biggest concern with Paul George is age and durability. Because there's no question for me, really, if he is still a top player in this league. But at 34 years old and a lot of injuries stacking up throughout his career, I worry if he'll be able to age gracefully in the association. But I love the fact that he played 74 games last year for the Clips, and he was effective. 22 points a night, giving you 5 boards, almost 4 assists, and continues to be that efficient scorer that he always has been, knocking it down from the field at 47% and a 41% clip from downtown. Love that. He finally put together a season of 70 games. But then he looked kind of like a scrub in the playoffs when his team needed him most, because Kawhi Leonard didn't play. And that was the moment for Paul George to step up and say, I'm the big dog. And he only ate out of the little dog's food bowl. 19.5 points per game, 41% from the field. You got to be better than that if you're trying to advance in the playoffs, and that's your best player giving you that production. So that scares me. Age, injury history, and didn't perform when the lights were the brightest and he was looked at as the top gun for LA. And I'm honestly not sure if the Clippers are even going to want to trade Paul George. They just inked Ty Lue to a 5-year extension to be their head coach. $70 million. Unless you're the Detroit Pistons, you don't pay a coach 5 years, $70 million to lead a rebuild, especially when you're going into a new stadium this upcoming year. I think the Clippers are in it with the long haul with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Maybe if the Knicks offer a great package, sure. But I don't see how you can land Paul George if you don't give up Julius Randle. And then I saw this, ESPN New York, they came up with some top trade targets for the Knicks. Booker, Bridges, Durant, Embiid, Paul George, and Donovan Mitchell. You're not getting any of these guys if you don't include Julius Randle. So I really tried to think about it because you guys have been in the comments, Marshall, we want to keep Randle. We don't want to trade him. Stop making us pick Randle, Bridges, Randle, KD, Randle, Donovan Mitchell. Stop making us pick. So I put on my thinking cap and I said, how or who can the Knicks get if they want to keep Randle? And the name I keep coming back to is Brandon Ingram. He's really the only star that I see available this offseason that the Knicks could trade for while holding on to Julius. I like Brandon Ingram. I do. I really do like him. But I can't say I love him. And I'm definitely not in love with him as a player. And I have been really hesitant as the host of this show to say the Knicks should trade for a player if I'm not in love with that guy. We told you about Brunson. We told you about Hart. We told you about DiVincenzo. We told you about Anunoby. Check, 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 check. Not to let you know, but now you know. I don't know, though, about Brandon Ingram. I like the player, but the injury history also concerns me with him. He's a guy that doesn't play all that much basketball. And I'm tired of doing injury update videos on this damn channel. I don't want to have to do injury updates once a month for Brandon Ingram because he played in 64 games this year. Great. Good job. But 45 the year before that, 55 the year before that, 61, 62, 52, 59. He's had one season of more than 70 games. And like Paul George, he folded like a lawn chair in the playoffs this year. Dude averaged 14 points on 34% from the field and 25% from three. He looked like Julius Randle against the Atlanta Hawks. Not to try to throw a little shot there at Randle, just what it looked like. But it's crazy because in 2022, the year before, he was great in the playoffs. 27 points per game, 47.5% from the field, and 40% from deep. So we've seen him do it. I just don't know if he is the missing piece for the Knicks. But if you run a starting lineup of Brunson, Do you go BI at the 2? OG at the 3? Randall at the 4? Hartenstein at the 5? It's a pretty good 5, especially if you hold on to Hart and DiVincenzo. But if you're going to trade for Brandon Ingram and you're not going to include Randall, why would the Pelicans make that move? They want a big man, they want a backup guard, and they want picks. So we'll give you Robinson, McBride, and 3 first-round picks. Probably 2 would have to be unprotected and 1 protected, or 2 protected and 1 protected. It's not going to be cheap. Nobody you trade for is going to be cheap this offseason, especially if you're not willing to give up Julius Randle. So I want to ask the real ones this question. Would you make this trade? You get Brandon Ingram, BI. You are a New York Knick, but you got to give up Mitch, and you got to give up Deuce and Bogey, and I would say at minimum 3 first-round picks. Would you make the deal? A for accept, D for decline. Get your votes in the comments section. I'll be down there looking as some of the smartest people in the world watch this channel. It's my job to be honest with you guys. And I think I've done a pretty damn good job of that. While also occasionally being right about what the Knicks should and should not do. This is not my favorite move. This is not. I don't think Brandon Ingram is a Tom Thibodeau player. And if I've only learned one thing about Tom Thibodeau, as I've covered this team every single day for 3 years, if you're not a Tom Thibodeau player, you're never going to become one, and he's not going to play you. We saw that with Fournier. We've seen that with Bogey. I think B.I. can play defense. And I actually like his fit in my head on paper on this team. He's an underrated playmaker. He's averaged over 5.5 assists in the last 3 years. You'd give you another guy at 6'8" that could play make and have Brunson play off ball and let him go back to a little bit more of that spot-up responsibility where he's one of the best spot-up three-point shooters at the guard position in this league. And a top 7 of Brunson, DiVincenzo, OG, Ingram, Randall, Hartenstein, Dante, and Hart, that's really good. That might have even been 8 players. But is he going to be ready to go in the playoffs? Is he going to be healthy? Can he deliver in crunch time? I think he's a good player. I don't know if he's a great player. I think he's an all-star, but is he a star? And I think there's a difference in the league than that. Light up the comment section. Let me know what you think, because I still just do not know. Hit me up on Twitter, IG, @MarshallGreen_, and let's go Knicks.